Now I'm going to introduce the keynote speaker for today. So ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker, Dr. Charles Adeyemi, founder, Charlie Institute for Development Studies. Dr. Charles Adeyemi is a multidisciplinary educator, student success coach, lecturer, author, and public speaker with nearly 2 decades of experience in the education sector. He holds a PhD in tourism development and concurrently lectures at Osun State University. He has taught a wide range of subjects from tourism to guitar and poetry, and previously led Elizabeth University debate team to numerous victories. He is the founder of the Charlie Institute for Development Studies and has held leadership roles in tourism, media, and consultancy. A TEDx organizer and policy analyst, his articles have appeared in national and international outlets. He has received several grants and has reached thousands globally through his African Ideas of Liberty course and student coaching initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, may welcome our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Charles Adeyemi. Dr. Charles, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that beautiful introduction, Dr. Adenike Akeshimori. I don't think I've heard myself being introduced that beautifully ever before. Thank you. And thank you for hosting this wondrous conference and also for having me join you guys to learn about how we can harness STEAM to solve global challenges. I'd like to share my screen now.
Please go ahead. I've shared your screen.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, here we go. Okay, good morning, once again, good afternoon, good evening, where you're here from. I'm Dr. Charles Adeyemi from the Charlie Institute, as already introduced. I'm speaking on this keynote titled, "We Need a Philosophical Revolution to Harness STEAM to Solve Global Challenges." Now, I'd like to start with an introduction, which has to do with the concept of STEAM itself, how we went from STEM to STEAM. When I saw the theme of this conference, it naturally brought to mind the transition from STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, to STEAM, that is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. On the surface, it may look like an ordinary addition of art to STEM, but beneath that is a very deep historical and philosophical foundation that every scholar should understand. In this address, I like to explore that foundation and argue that to truly harness STEAM for global challenges, we need to go one step further. But first, let us acknowledge the work of John Maida, a designer, a graphic artist, a computer scientist, and former president of Rhode Island School of Design. He was who emphasized the importance of design thinking and arts in fostering innovation, and thereby made a convincing argument that led to the addition of arts to STEAM as we have it today. And so I will today be making the argument in continuation of Joy Maida's argument. I will be making the argument that we need to bring back philosophy to this mix. Let us explore why. Now, it all started from philosophy. What you're seeing, the image you're seeing right now is the image of a philosopher known as Alan Watts, a British philosopher with some, who some have described as the first vlogger. In a video that can still be found on YouTube, he described the experience of seeing a shop whose outdoor signage announced, "We sell philosophy instruments." Now, when we talk about philosophy today, you don't imagine that there can be any instruments for that. Philosophy as we know it today, of course, is, has to do with sitting down, like Alan Watts is probably sitting down in this village right now, and thinking, coming up with concepts and so on about life, contemplating life, generating ideas from your mind, you know. However, Alan Watts goes into this shop, and what he found them selling were telescopes and chronometers and other such things that today we know as science instruments. So it turns out, as Alan Watts discovered that day, and you are now discovering, if you haven't before, that the original name for everything we now call science was natural philosophy. Natural philosophy later became what is known as the physical sciences, which further divided into biological science, physics, and chemistry. And of course, the further division goes on and on and on. And don't forget that natural philosophy itself started out as a branch of philosophy in general, of which there are other branches. Now, philosophy meant literally the love of wisdom. In practice, it was the term for all attempts to understand any aspect of life in a deep way. So while some people devoted themselves to farming and they became farmers, and some people devoted themselves to music and they became singers or musicians, some people devoted themselves to studying virtually anything and thinking deeply about virtually anything and expressing their profound thoughts in writings and in speeches and also in debates. And they were called philosophers. So why and how did we arrive at these further divisions that we have today? Now that brings us to the concept of specialization. As so many philosophers emerged, studying and developing ideas around various branches of knowledge, some became better at specific branches than others. And so they became specialists in their specific areas, and as such, they carved out a niche for themselves. So Gregor Mendel, for instance, was a philosopher who studied plant hybridization, and through his discoveries, he became the founder of genetics, the new field of natural philosophy, of course. And so we have Adam Smith, who was a moral philosopher, and he wrote the book Wealth of Nations that you can see right now. And he became the father of economics. And I think earlier you saw an image of Isaac Newton, who was a natural philosopher and who wrote the book, The Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, and therefore became a key figure in physics. So even today, we have people like Adeyemi pushing the frontiers of knowledge in our field and other scholars across the world. And today we have this vast array of disciplines in academia. The mind map you are looking at right now is not even comprehensive by any stretch of imagination, but this can be some kind of summary of what we have as various specializations of what all of which could have been aspects of philosophy or even natural philosophy. So specialization is a good thing because it allows each person to pick one field or discipline and then master it, become highly proficient in it, and thereby contribute to solving problems in that discipline. It has made humans more efficient in solving global challenges because now we have specialists in every aspect of life that you can think of. The specializations went so far that today we have hundreds of disciplines in the universities. In the last few centuries, we've been in the era of specialists, but that has led to some key implications in the knowledge economy. First of all, we now have what is called the narrow specialists. While solving problems in various areas of life, specializations comes with its own challenges. People have specialized so much that they have deep knowledge of one discipline and almost zero knowledge of other disciplines outside their field. So for example, an economist today may be totally clueless about biology, and a biologist may be almost totally clueless about governance and economics. Unlike today's specialists, even when they specialized, the original philosophers had a much more broad, vast array of knowledge across fields and disciplines of their time. Now, another problem that has arisen or challenge, or well, implication rather, is the advancement of technology and the rise of artificial intelligence. Now, rightly understood, science, engineering, mathematics, and even arts collectively produce technology. Of course, you cannot have a MacBook or an iPhone without some arts, design of even text that is used, fonts that are used in the software come from calligraphy and so on. So artificial intelligence is a direct consequence of specialization coming from technology, and it has led to the development of computer science. It has led to development of automation and then machine learning and natural language processing and all of that before we arrive at artificial intelligence. And so today, artificial intelligence can be regarded as the most powerful steam force, even that it takes attributes from every other aspect. And obviously today it can be used to combat all sorts of global challenges. For instance, in 2003, the human genome sequencing cost billions of dollars, but today it can be done with a few $100s. It is now possible to grow more food in vertical farming in a 40-foot container than our ancestors grew on an hectare of land. Today, we have vertical farms that consume up to 95% less water than conventional methods. Companies like Flash Forest now use drones to plant thousands of trees a day, far exceeding what humans can do manually, particularly in hard-to-reach areas. So we have the technology to turn deserts to forests, to clean up the oceans, to restore mangrove forests, to combat deadly diseases, to eradicate hunger. In fact, we already grow more food than the world needs, even though some people still go. So you can see that STEAM and artificial intelligence alone will not be enough to solve global challenges. We will need the right political, economic, and cultural environment. And we will also need the right leadership, and also a populace with the right mindset. While at it, we will also need to be aware of some of the downsides of advanced technology and artificial intelligence. We need to be aware that the advancement of technology, not to mention artificial intelligence, has its downsides. One of the biggest global challenges that faces mankind today and will continue to face mankind in the foreseeable future is the problem of global warming. A 2007 assessment by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, concluded that the planet warmed by 0.75 degrees Celsius between 1906 and 2005. But by 2023, the latest report indicated a 1.5 degrees Celsius rise. And today, models are saying that we are likely to have between 2 to 6 degrees Celsius in global warming by 2100. Of course, none of us is likely to be here by then, but our children or grandchildren will be. Some of these predictions, 2 to 6 degrees Celsius in global warming, some of these predictions are already locked in, which means that no matter what we do now in terms of the afforestation and so on, no matter what we do, the warming would continue for decades before the impact of current interventions can meet up. And this global warming has been attributed largely to human activities, development of infrastructures, and the use of, or shall we say, misuse of technology. And so there's an aspect or a prospect that with artificial intelligence, we will put even more pressure on the planet and accelerate global warming, possibly to an extent that we actually destroy the planet. Or, on the other hand, we might also find a way to become more responsible with our use of artificial intelligence to actually stop and even reverse global warming and turn the planet into a true paradise. So either ways, it appears we might be fulfilling some ancient prophecy or the other. So the choice that will take us in either direction will be more about ethics and philosophy than about science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics itself. Whichever direction we go, we must be aware of the consequences, however, of artificial intelligence on human intelligence itself. Already, reliance on calculators has weakened the capacity of many persons to do simple calculations. Reliance on Google Maps has meant that many of us will miss our way without a map. Mobile phones and social media, it made it easier for us to stay in touch with family and friends, but they distract us from paying attention to what is right in front of us. So many things that our ancestors did effortlessly are increasingly becoming difficult for us. And now, with artificial intelligence, for many people, even the ability to think, to write, is becoming impaired. We now have a prospect of a future in which humans may not need to work at all, a future in which even your bed will be a smart bed, and the bed itself may give you an automated shower, dress you up in a robotic flying suit that takes you wherever you want to go. A future in which man merges with machine and we go from being humans to being humanoids. Or if you will put it in other words, a future in which man becomes what he used to think of as gods. There is even now talk of a future in which we eventually encounter the death of death itself, that man lives forever on earth by virtue of technology. There is also talk about the possible future in which it is no longer Israel versus Palestine or US versus China, but AI versus humanity. So for now, the totality of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics is embedded in AI as its most advanced manifestation and as the new driving force, and has been described as the AI revolution. Indeed, AI has emerged as a powerful and very useful tool available to mankind, but it raises a lot of questions and also leads to the neglect of many aspects of the human experience. The neglect of disciplines, such as, several various disciplines, has become one of the reasons why, in the first place, arts was brought back into the STEAM, or into STEM rather, which then became STEAM, as it were. Many of us in Nigeria, for instance, we have experienced this in the form of being told to go to science class simply because you are very intelligent, and then others go to art and commercial classes because they are considered less intelligent. Whereas, even as you are very intelligent as a student, high school student, it may be that you are more arts inclined naturally, despite being proficient across all subjects. So that's how we tend to prioritize and emphasize arts up until recently, when through the advocacy of John Meade, arts was reintegrated, or is being attempted to be reintegrated into the STEM concept. So it's not, however, only at the secondary school level of education that this is a problem, this, the emphasis of certain disciplines. Even at the higher level, we have the problem of the coupling of the various disciplines due to over specialization. So, for instance, if you study geology of a particular place, you may study the rock as a geologist. You may study the rock formations of the various shapes of landscape, mineral deposits, and so on. But the local folks may have a song or eulogy that praises the hills and the rocks and the vegetation, and even tells stories about things that happened in that place centuries ago. So as a geologist, you are likely to be totally disconnected from such storytelling, history, singing, and reverence for the location by the locals who live there. And this disconnect may lead to conflicts that hinder your work, whereas with a better understanding of the local culture, their folk songs and eulogies, you may even find that they lead you to a deeper geological insight than you would have otherwise, need. So similarly, the design of prosthetic limbs, which is a purely by a purely STEM approach, might create a functional mechanical hand, but by integrating arts, design, aesthetics, and philosophy, a beautifully designed, customizable prosthetic that feels and looks natural to the user, perhaps looks African, looks Nigerian, is more likely to be adopted for, say, a Nigerian in that example, and which makes a more human-centered design. Therefore, at higher levels of education, scholars and researchers in academia are now encouraged to embrace a multidisciplinary approach to research and also to teaching. Some have gone beyond talking about a multidisciplinary approach to even talking about a transdisciplinary approach, which has to do with not just combining multiple academic disciplines, but also bringing in non-academic stakeholders such as government and local community. And so it was in such circumstances that art was brought into the STEM mix. We now have STEAM, which is very much better. But the question is that enough? My answer is no. I think we need even more reintegration of the disparate body of knowledge by returning to philosophy, which is where it all started from, but from which we have all strayed way too far. In addition to whatever our specialization may be, in addition to becoming multidisciplinarians, I think all scholars should return to asking the core philosophical questions. In a world where artificial intelligence can write poetry, compose music, and even generate human-like faces, we are forced to ask, what is uniquely human? Is it our creativity, or is it our consciousness, our empathy? These are the same philosophical questions that our ancestors started with. And as it was then, so also today, they have serious implications on how we shape our world. The solution to global challenges won't come solely from better algorithms or more efficient engineering. They will come from a philosophical revolution, from a return to asking the deepest questions about purpose, about ethics and humanity. It is only when we fully integrate philosophy with STEM that we can build a future that is not only technologically advanced, but also wise, just, and truly human. On that note, I'll leave the rest of the speakers and discussants to flesh out the details of this profoundly philosophical problem. But the challenges we face are not merely technical, they are deeply human. The future of our world depends on our ability to harness not just skill, but also the love of wisdom from which it all began. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charles Adeyemi. We're going to have a Q&A session with you. So if you have questions for the keynote, please feel free to put that in the chat box. Thank you so much for that insightful presentation.